Hi, my name is Morin. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live on tax status versus legal statuses. I am the principal attorney and founding member of Morin Legal, your small business and entertainment law practice on the East Side Atlanta Beltline Trail in Old Fourth Ward and Inman Park, neighborhoods of Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm here today to talk about the distinction between tax statuses and legal statuses, which is a question that pops up frequently in our small business practice. So, what is a legal status exactly? Well, this year we've been talking about business entities, including sole proprietorships, general partnerships, limited partnerships, and registered entities, of course, in the last session, including limited liability companies and corporations. So when we're referring to legal status, remember the sole proprietorship and the general partnership is a situation where the individual and the business is regarded as one and the same. So the legal status essentially is that of the individual. Essentially, that's what it means when you have unlimited personal risk of liability exposure. So what is the legal status that we're referring to when we're talking about in this context is really with respect to business entities, and in specific with respect to registered entities, which is the topic of our last LinkedIn Live. If you tuned into that, if you missed the video, it's on our page on our YouTube channel also. So, legal status essentially is in relationship to the form that business entities take, and in specific registered entities, such as the three basic formations we'll talk about in this LinkedIn Live: the corporation, the limited liability company or LLC, and the limited partnership, essentially, which is comprised of at least one general partner and a series of limited partners. So the formation of the registered entity essentially is a way of stating its management, or who are the managers and how is the company operated, and who are the owners or who is in control of the company. So those are two distinct roles, and they're often expressed in different ways within the structures that we just talked about, within the structure of the corporation, the limited liability company, and the limited partnership. So the legal status is essentially the ownership structure and how the operations of the company is executed. In contrast, the tax status of a company is just one small piece of the company, whereas the legal status are the broad brushstrokes. The tax status really is just one small part of the broader company, and is really just how one administrative agency regards the business entities. So we're obviously talking about the IRS and various state tax entities. In Georgia, it's the Department of Revenue. But your tax status is important with respect to the business entity's tax status recall, because it is how you will be regarded when you're filing those returns. And so, what do we mean by how the IRS regards you? Well, there's a few ways that you might elect to be regarded. There's obviously default elections that are automatically selected when you file your returns versus you're filling out a form to affirmatively elect a new tax status, which is another option that you have. But the default election for small businesses primarily is in the respect of the sole proprietorship, and also the partnerships is to be disregarded. And so what does that mean? It just basically means that um, you are a business entity, but for tax purposes, you are disregarded. And so that income or loss is regarded against your individual returns. So that's the tax statuses as an individual person or as a partner in a partnership, for example. Another way that the IRS regards you is as a pass-through entity when we're talking about business entities once again. And what is a pass-through entity? Again, it just essentially means that the income tax is not taxed at the corporate rate. It passes through once more to the individual or the partner schedule. And so that is essentially the most popular example I can offer you of when people have that conversation of what does it mean to be a pass-through entity and still achieve a reduced income tax on my small business is the S Corp election. And again, this is a tax status, not a legal status. So, what's interesting about that is since they work in tandem, you can have, for example, um, a limited liability company that is taxed as an S corporation, right? And so, not to confuse any of our listeners or viewers today, but again, pass through simply means you're not paying the corporate tax, you are paying at the individual or the stockholder, shareholder dividend rate as a business owner. And that reduces the individual income tax to only what your reasonable salary might be. And certainly there are regulations about that, which you can discuss with an attorney about changing your tax status if you haven't done that yet and you're interested in talking about switching to an S Corp formation. Okay, so finally, the last tax status everyone's familiar with is the corporate tax. And really, that's famous and really it's infamous because nobody likes to pay more tax than they have to. But corporations are double taxed, right? You pay the corporate tax and then you pay your individual income tax on your paycheck and whatever ownership share dividends that you might issue yourself as well. So it certainly is the most prolific tax structure, but why do people use corporations anyway? Most of the time it's when they want to raise money. Fundraising and S corporation is tricky because there's really only one form of stock that you're allowed to have. And when you're raising funds, you don't always want to share your management and control with your fundraising partners. You know, you might want to make all the creative and business decisions, but that would not permit you to do that. Furthermore, you might want to invite investors that are not US citizens or that might be foreign entities or institutions, which you cannot do with an S Corp. So there's reasons people bite the bullet and pay the double tax with a corporation. But certainly, whatever tax status is right for you is a personal discussion and a professional decision that you want to make with the advice of a small business counselor and your CPA, ideally together. So we encourage you to do that. And certainly, thank you for joining us for this informative session today on tax status versus legal status. Please join us in a couple of weeks when we're going to dive into a contracts masterclass. I'm really not sure we're going to be able to cover everything in one little session, but we're going to do the best we can. It might be a part one, there might be a part two, but certainly join us at the beginning of each year. Once we get through all the crazy deadlines, we're always looking ahead at what can we do better for our clients and how can we tighten up their operations and reduce their risk and liability going forward. And certainly contracts is the place we start every time. So thanks for joining us today. Have a great day. This has been Lee Morin with Morin Legal, your small business and entertainment lawyer on the Beltline. Thanks for joining our LinkedIn Live.